Hard Bop. Like bebop, but heavier, earthier, more intense, filled with rhythmic energy, and of course, harder. Hard Bop evolved out of the bebop style on the east coast of the United States and found its roots in the popular black music of the time, rhythm and blues and soul, and of the past, the blues. Its evolution was partially seen as a reaction against cool jazz, which permeated the West Coast scene. However, according to Blue Note discographer and jazz record producer Michael Kuskuna, the development of the hard bop style, at least where jazz drummer Art Blakey and piano player Horace were concerned, was a reaction to the New York bebop scene itself. Blakey and Silver wanted to move beyond the jazz scene of the early 50s, where a soloist such as Charlie Parker or Phil Woods would sit in with a house rhythm section and play nothing but standards and blues with no rehearsal beforehand. Instead, Blakey and Silver wanted to make music that was more arranged and memorable, therefore being more welcoming to an audience and the average listener. To this extent, they looked to such styles as the blues and gospel for inspiration. The Jazz Messengers, the band that would become known as one of the quintessential hard bop ensembles, was the result that came from this desire. The following will be an exploration of hard bop stylistic intricacies and innovations through the lens of some classic hard bop recordings that showcase why the style was one of the most influential developments to come out of bebop. The tune Cranky Spanky of the 1957 album Hard Bop by the Jazz Messengers is an excellent example of what is meant when people describe hard bop as hard driving. The song starts with a whirlwind rush of energy that rages throughout. This burst of energy is set off by Blakey's drum break right before the melody comes in, and is maintained by the ferocity of each member of the rhythm section from start to finish. The piano in particular maintains very similar comping figures throughout the entirety of the song, which in combination with the bass player's walking feel contributes to the sense of momentum and urgency driving the song forward. Of Blakey specifically, his driving time feel on the ride cymbal and beats 2 and 4 on the hi-hats is augmented by near constant and almost intrusive interaction with the soloists. Blakey orchestrates his accompaniment across the drums and cymbals, playing both syncopated and superimposed figures across the 4/4 time feel. As a result, there is a constant flurry of interaction between Blakey and the soloists, with Blakey sometimes seeming to goad the soloists into playing with even more fervour. It is this that helps create the sense of energy and forward momentum that drives the song. This loud and active style of accompaniment by the drums very much typifies the hard bop style, although this does not necessarily mean that this was the only style in which the drums were played in hard bop. The solos played still do not sound drastically different from a bebop solo, although it should be noted that many of the hard bop players also played bebop, and at times the two styles could sound quite similar. However, as time progressed, hard bop solos would begin to further distinguish themselves from the bebop style. Senor Blues was a tune written by pianist Horace Silver and first released on the 1957 album 6 Pieces of Silver. The song is a minor blues in a 6/8 time feel with a Latin-inspired beat. The funky melody of the tune is simple when compared to a bebop melody such as Charlie Parker's Confirmation, but this is part of what makes it distinctly hard bop. Hard bop melodies were usually much simpler in comparison to those of bebop, which also could give them a singable quality. There was even a vocal version of Senor Blues released with lyrics. Also worth noting is the backing that accompanies this melody. The tune starts with a unison bass line shared between the piano and bass, before the drums enter with a straightforward 6/8 Latin-inspired groove and the piano starts to comp. Apart from the piano solo and a short interlude before it, the comping by the rhythm section maintains a consistent funky groove throughout, with shifts in dynamics being the only overt change in backing. This style of accompaniment, where the groove is the most important, is another characteristic of hard bop. Although not necessarily present in all hard bop, it is definitely a distinct characteristic found in the hard bop music of Horace Silver. In Senor Blues specifically, this constant rhythmic repetition solidifies the groove and provides the soloist the sound foundation on which to solo and embellish the groove even more. A final aspect of note is Silver's solo. Notice the simplicity in which he solos with brief phrases, almost all tinged with the blues, that he varies and expands upon. However, at no point does the solo turn into a continuous stream of quaver lines that you would often expect to hear in bebop. Instead, throughout the solo, an elegant and bluesy simplicity is maintained to try and achieve a maximum emotional effect on the listener without becoming incomprehensible and while staying in the groove. This type of soloing was a mainstay of the hard bop style. Whilst the complexity of solos could exceed that of this example, they usually would not match that of a raging bebop solo. Amongst all of this, the blues influence and an emphasis on clear ideas and groove remained king. Moanin is an original tune written by pianist Bobby Timmons and first released on the Jazz Messengers album of the same name in 1959. One of the first things worth pointing out is the gospel influence present in this song. During the A section after someone plays the melody, the rest of the band responds with 2 chord hits. With the key of the song being F, the 2 chord hits are B flat over F, the 4 chord, and F major, the 1 chord. This 4-to-1 cadence is sometimes called the Amen Cadence due to its frequent use in gospel music. In addition, also note how the 2 chord hits after the first phrase in the melody could be considered an example of call-and response, another aspect found from gospel music. The 2 aspects combined with Timmons slurring between the chords demonstrates and evokes the gospel sound within hard bop. Another aspect of hard bop that is demonstrated would be the original chord progression and arrangement of the head. First of all, the tune has an AABA song form, with the melody first being played by solo piano and with the chord hits played by the rest of the band as a response after each phrase. The second day has the horns playing instead of the piano. Finally, in the B section, the whole band comes in before a short break where the band cuts out before the A section is played once more by the piano before proceeding into the solos. What is worth noting is that the song is played and orchestrated in this way every time that it is performed. The arrangement itself is an integral part of the song. This is drastically different from bebop, where the only unique characteristics of a tune could be the melody. The chords may be the same chords from another popular song or rhythm changes, and if you were to only listen to the backings of the rhythm section, you could easily think that the tune being played was any number of songs. With a hard bop tune like Moanin, this is not the case. In hard bop, both the arrangement and the original chord progression of a tune are distinctly unique to that tune, so that it would be unmistakable the moment a passerby would hear it. As such, Moanin is a great example of this. Finally, a mention of Lee Morgan's trumpet solo on Moanin is something that should not be ignored, as it is a prime example of hard bop soloing. From Morgan's first note, he locks in effortlessly with the rhythm section and Art Blakey's deep shuffle groove. Each phrase is drenched in the sound of the blues, and no phrases are wasted as he develops each idea for a whole section before moving on to the next. Morgan dips and rises in dynamics throughout, pulling the rhythm section with him before finally playing one last phrase into saxophonist Benny Golson's first chorus, which Golson promptly picks up and then develops. Groovy, blues-tinged, soulful and succinct, Morgan's solo on Moanin can truly be considered the prime example of a hard bop solo. In conclusion, the hard bop style could be considered both an evolution of the bebop played on the East Coast New York jazz scene, whilst also being a response to the cool jazz movement on the West Coast. The style both extended upon the bebop tradition and found further inspiration in black roots music, such as gospel and the blues, with some of its key elements including original tunes with original chord progressions and specific arrangements, a heavy, hard-driving, funky swing groove, simpler melodies with an often singable quality, and blues-tinged solos that avoided rapid-fire eighth-note lines or bebop. Ultimately, hard bop was just another attempt to musically evolve out of the bebop tradition of the 40s and 50s.